Hello class, it's Professor Streeter. I'm going to talk to you today about free will and determinism. I've got some notes over here and I'll work through them like I did before. We'll begin by looking at some passages from Leibniz's monadology that support a deterministic worldview, and then that will segue into a discussion of some parts of the Cider chapter on free will and determinism, and then by the end I'll draw a connection to Descartes. So this will be broken up into 5-minute chunks, just like before. And these notes on this side of the screen I will share with you. I just want to say before we get started, I'm going to try a virtual class on Wednesday, and we can talk about this if you'd like. We can talk about the essay that I've asked you to think about. There's one more big essay to write this semester, a 5-page essay. And this week I want to begin talking about the topics and what you want to write about. I will help you if you're having trouble coming up with a topic, but I thought you could start by brainstorming and trying to come up with a topic of your own. Okay, so we can talk about that more on Wednesday, I hope. Leibniz's monadology, a very strange little text. Leibniz was a 17th century German philosopher, and with Isaac Newton in England, separately in different countries, they are both considered the inventors of the calculus. So when you study calculus in high school, you're studying something that was invented by Gottfried Leibniz. He was a logician, a mathematician, but also wrote about metaphysics, wrote about substance. So his ideas in the monadology support a deterministic worldview. This is the idea that every event has a sufficient cause. Determinism is committed to that. Everything that happens has a sufficient cause, meaning that if we trace back the chain of events into the past, right, those conditions in the past give us a complete explanation, a sufficient explanation for why the event happened. Okay, so take the event of my deciding to make this video and record it on YouTube. We can give a complete account, a sufficient account of why that event happened by referring to all of the events in the past that led up to it. Okay, so in his short treatise, The Monadology, he lays out his view of simple substances, or what he calls monads. This is a strange idea. They're like atoms, but not physical atoms. They're like spiritual atoms, what he calls living mirrors of the universe, or distinct perspectives on the infinite variety of the world as a whole. So each monad is a kind of unique and distinct perspective on the universe as a whole. And those spiritual atoms make up all of the composite substance. So I am a composite substance, but I am made up out of a monad. You could call it a soul, but this book also is composed of simple substances that are monads that contain a kind of intellectual perception of the universe as a whole. So this book is a mirror of the universe as a whole. You can know everything there is to know about the universe from the perspective of this book. Just like you can know everything that there is to know about the universe from the perspective of my mind. Okay. Now I am aware of that perception. Right? I am a thinking monad. Or a thinking substance. I am aware of the perception that I have of at least this part of the universe. The book isn't aware of its perceptions, but the book is in some sense a perception of the universe as a whole. Okay, or it's made up of simple substances. It has a kind of a perspective. It is a mirror of the universe. It's an odd idea. Okay, but let's look at that idea. Looking at section 22, so I've given you the number of the sections in the monadology that you can follow, not the page numbers, but section 22. Since every present state of a simple substance, or a monad, is a natural consequence of its preceding state, the present is pregnant with the future. Okay, this right there, we have a kind of clear sense of the deterministic perspective that Leibniz is defending here. For any substance, right, the present state that it's in is a consequence of its preceding state. So the present contains the conditions of the future. The past contains the conditions of the present. Okay, this is a kind of a beautiful sentence. The present is pregnant with the future. The past is pregnant with the present. Okay. Then he brings up sort of two basic principles of reasoning. One, so that when we're reasoning from premises to conclusions, right, one way that we form beliefs is based on the principle of contradiction, or one way we form true beliefs is based on the principle of contradiction, where we judge that something is false if it involves a contradiction, or that something is true if it is opposed to a contradictory statement. The other way that we form true beliefs is on the principle of sufficient reason. Okay, so we can we know on the basis of this principle that everything that happens, every fact, every true assertion, has a complete and sufficient explanation for why it happened. Now, many times these reasons are not known to us, but the principle is that any event that occurs, any true assertion that we make, right, has a complete and sufficient explanation for why it's true or why it happened. Okay. So then he moves on in section 36 to kind of a sort of application of that principle of sufficient reason, that there is an infinity of past and present shapes and motions that enter into the efficient cause of my present writing, so my present speaking. Right now I'm doing something. There is an infinite chain of past and present motions or events that enter into the present cause of whatever is presently making me do what I'm doing. And there is an infinity of small inclinations and dispositions of my soul, present and past, that enter into its final cause. So again, we have this idea that everything that is happening now can be traced back to an infinite series of motions that explain why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. But in some sense, if that chain of events goes on to infinity, then we don't have an ultimate answer to the question why something is happening now if the chain of events goes back to infinity. So it has to stop somewhere. And this is sort of Leibniz's argument for why God must exist. That is why the ultimate reason of things must be in a necessary substance. There must be one thing that exists necessarily that begins the chain of events that leads to the full and complete explanation for why something happened. Okay, let me pause there, and we'll look at some other passages from Leibniz just to give you a sense of sort of what a deterministic view of the universe looks like. Okay.